That's right. Good morning, everybody. How you doing? There is something about a boat. Don't you love being out there on the water, being an island unto yourself? Yes. I grew up with sailboats. In fact, my father had a kayak sailboat that was pretty fun because you sit way down in it, and I think if you ever tipped it over, I'm not sure you could get out because you could only put like two people in it. I think my dad's was like a two-seater. Anyways, there is something about a boat, but not on a day like today. A little chilly to be out there on the lake, although I'm sure there's somebody that will go out there. Let's go ahead and check the weather. Hey, I'm Ann Eller. This is WCRS Radio on the last, and I mean the last day of 2025. So what are you thinking? Are you saying, heck yeah, 25 is over, let's get into 26? Are you saying, I don't know what 26 is going to hold, maybe we ought to stay right here? I don't know. It just seems like the world is turning at such a fast pace anymore. If you really think back about it, wasn't it nice only to get your news like maybe twice a day? You had the morning news, but particularly the evening news. If you just think about some of the things that have changed. Now we're obsessed, well, you may not be, but I kind of am, about knowing what's going on. Of course, it is part of my job to know what's going on, but I just think we have changed so much, and, we're like, what was that movie? More information. I need more information. And then, of course, if you're of a certain persuasion, you like all the scuttlebutt on social media. In fact, you may be a person that puts a comment or two in there just to stir the pot. What did we do before we had social media? I think for a lot of people, it's hard to remember what life was like before social media. And one of the things that we're going to do during the show today is go back and relive some of the big things from the 70s that just actually had a lot of change in society. I mean, I guess you could say every decade had things that changed it, but some of the things that I have found here that I have dug up, I think you might find kind of interesting. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We are going to, of course, talk about that this year is done, and it's hard for me to believe that it just, I don't know. When I was a kid, I remember summer vacation seemed to last forever, right? And now it's like they don't even really have a summer vacation as a kid because they're in school, 10 whatever many months out of the year, but they're perpetually going to school because they found you lost too much when you had summertime. And so this is the thing that they do now. And most people like it. So it's a good thing. I'm not saying that, but it used to be like summer vacation was like, oh my God, I can't wait to get back to school to see some of my friends. Now it's like, I just saw you 2 weeks ago and here we are back again. So you don't even miss your friends. And with social media, quite often, people stay so connected. Anyways, the cell phone, the internet, these things have impacted our life more than we can imagine, and in the future are going to impact it even more. These data centers, they just opened up one down, in Orangeburg here in our state, but these data centers that are coming that will require more and more and more, I guess you could say more information, more data. We need more data will certainly make a difference. I went to Greenville last night with Christy and her family, and we went up just to hang out and look at the lights and have something to eat and kind of celebrate the fact that all her girls are home, meaning Caitlin, who is in the Army in Hawaii, was back for Christmas, and Abby, who goes to USC, was home. Of course, Ethan was home. So we went up there, looked at the lights. Couldn't have picked a more cold day to go. But we were afraid if we didn't go pretty soon, it'd just be too cold, and the lights would be gone. But it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful up there, and we had a good time. We ate at the Mellow Mushroom. I had never eaten at a Mellow Mushroom. So that was fun, and took some pictures, some Christmas pictures. That was fun. So walked around. I think I had over 12,000 steps yesterday. I don't know. I've got somebody that I know will say, that's not so many steps. I do more than that. I know. Well, for me, it's quite a few. But anyways. We did that. Then we went to if eating pizza at the Mellow Mushroom wasn't enough, we had to go have dessert. And part of the purpose of our trip was to go, I thought it would be cool to go up there, have a cup of cappuccino or some nice coffee, and a nice dessert. Now there's two really good dessert places I know of. The Old Europe, which to me, I love that one because the desserts are just a little different there. The other one is Carmelo's. Well, by the time we finished eating pizza, Mellow Mushroom, we were going to just walk over to the Old European. It was closed. So we didn't get to go there. We went to Carmelo's. And, of course, that's a lovely, lovely place. Cappuccino was extremely delicious. So we had a great time. We just had a great time. We always do when we go around and hang out and do stuff. So, but we also walked over to the Old Bohemian hotel over there. God, that place is big and huge and beautiful. And I was confronted with something that I was shocked that this bothered me. They had a huge display on the wall of antique turquoise jewelry. Big, beautiful pieces, cuffs, and the big squash blossoms and this type of thing. And I was very surprised. It made me very sad. And I was like, wow, what is going on? You know, we at Sharp Facets for a period of time were really into those big squash blossoms, and we had a lot of big, beautiful bangle bracelets and rings. In fact, I've got several of the pieces that were mine. But I hadn't been confronted with the idea because it's a whole wall of these squash blossoms, and they're just beautiful. And it really surprised me how much it bothered me to see all that stuff. And the only thing I could liken it to was, since everything that's happened in my life with the jewelry, being in the jewelry business, moving over here, getting into radio, changing the way we did Jeff became the antique, well, he was the antique vintager, but we started putting more emphasis on that and the buying and everything. I don't think I've been in a jewelry store that was similar to ours or anything, but seeing that wall of squash blossoms and whatnot there just really got to me, because I guess it just brought back a lot of memories. And so I just thought I'd mention it. I don't know why, but it just really did. All of a sudden I became extremely sad. So, but anyways, that's just a little aside. Didn't last very long. Got outside, was okay. Saw some of those huge crystals that they have there, quartz crystals, etc. Just brought back a lot of memories of things that Jeff and I did, and collecting big, beautiful specimens, bringing them back, selling them, etc., etc. All right. So we did that. That was a lot of fun. But it was cold. Man, it was cold. All right, so we did that last night, and I'm glad we did. But moving on to talk about some of the things that I wanted to get into today. Well, we are going to talk about the man boob story today, but I'll save that to the end. You may have to go have a drink after you hear this story. You know, that has to do with the side effects of medication, which to me, I don't never mind. I'm going to wait till the end. Let's talk about some of these other stories out here. Clemson, of course, has, I'm sure if you're a Clemson fan, you already know this, but Clemson has made its change in part of their coaching staff. They are to change the offensive coordinator. Sweeney said that this was a difficult decision. These decisions are never easy, especially when you really love and care for the people that are involved. I deeply love and care for Garrett. Well, what is that?
Clemson football announcing a couple major staff changes. Palmetto Sports Director Carmine Jamay explains the motive behind the moves and what comes next.
Clemson offensive coordinator Garrett Riley and safeties coach Mickey Kahn's time with the Tigers is done. Yeah, Ashley, just 2 days after Clemson football played its final game of the season.
Okay, well, anyways, you probably already know about this. I got too much noise. Anyways, a couple of them are no longer with it. They're making changes because this is what had to happen. Something had to happen, and since it's not Dabo Sweeney's not going anywhere. It had to be somebody else. So there you go. I'll just leave it
Clemson
like that.
football announcing a couple major staff changes. Palmetto Sports Director Carmine Jamay explains the motive behind the moves and what comes next. He joins us right now live in studio. Carmine, fill us in and break this down for us. A lot of changes coming here.
Yeah, Ashley, just 2 days after Clemson football played its final game of the season, 2 assistant coaches have been fired. Just a few hours ago, head coach Dabo Sweeney announcing offensive coordinator Garrett Riley and safeties coach Mickey Kahn will not be returning to the Tigers. The changes come after the team finished with a loss to Penn State in the Pinstripe Bowl and a disappointing 7-6 record. Riley's time with the team done after 3 seasons following an offensive decline outside top 70 in the country in scoring. Riley was making almost $2 million a year and had 2 years left on his contract. And former safeties coach Mickey Kahn helped the Tigers earn their 2 national championships over the past decade. His relationship with Dabo goes way back to another national championship they won together in 1992 when they were both players at Alabama. Dabo saying, quote, "These decisions are never easy, especially when you really love and care for the people that are involved. And I deeply love and care for Garrett Riley and his family. At the end of the day, we just did not get the production and the results that we needed." Also saying, Coach Kahn is someone that I've known since 1990, and he truly is family to me. He's done an amazing job here at Clemson. I'm excited about the plan to help achieve our goals for 2026 and beyond. I'll be back later in the newscast to explain exactly how the results from those 2 now former assistants were not up to Sweeney's standards. For Palmetto.
Okay, well, we got through that and got the answer. Okay. Hey, I'm Ann Eller. I don't know where, that's where the things that happen sometimes on this computer just totally boggle my mind. All right, let's go ahead and talk about some of the other things that are out there in the news. If you've got a comment here or a question, of course you can leave it right there on our Facebook Live. We are Facebook Live on WCRS on Facebook. You can check it out there. And, of course, if you miss it, you can, of course, go back and watch it on Facebook. But you also can watch it right there on our website, WCRS1450am.net. That's WCRS1450am.net. So check that out. Now, let's go check out a couple of other things that I wanted you to make sure that you know about. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Here we go. I was reading about how South Carolina is involving more of the small towns in making sure that the word gets out about that. It's called a program that is called the Front Porch Program, a network of local welcome centers that get help from the state in promoting local attractions. So that's in November. They started adding cities in together. It's a 2-year-old program, keeps on growing. And so I think that's pretty interesting way. I wonder if that's, I haven't really heard of the Front Porch program before, but obviously that is a good thing for some of our smaller towns, and certainly is highlighting those. So I'm sure Greenwood is probably, if they're not already part of it, will be part of it, because it sounds like a really good, folksy way to promote all of these things. So that was one little nugget of information that I had. What else did we have here today? Let's talk about some of the things from the past, that I found interesting. One thing was that I thought, since this is the last day of the new year, we'd talk about the first New Year's resolutions may date back 4,000 years. 4,000 years. Did you know that, of course, the first of the year actually used to be in March? The ancient Egyptians, for example, shared huge meals and partook in music and dancing to commemorate the pending flooding of the Nile. That's right. They knew it was going to flood. I hope they got to higher ground. It doesn't say anything about that. It just says they got prepared for it. They had festivals. They had the festival of Wepet Rempik, meaning opening of the year, and the Babylonians of Mesopotamia enjoyed their own extended gala some 4,000 years ago, with rituals that may have included a prototype of our modern day New Year's resolution. Held in March to mark the start of the planting season, the 12-day Babylonian festival of Akitu, which began on the first new moon of the spring, was a time to honor the supreme god Marduk, his son Nebu, and the other deities who watched over the people. For the king, that included humbling ceremony in which he was stripped of his regalia, struck across the face, and dragged by the ears by a high priest to atone for any sins committed. Yeah, that sounds like today, doesn't it? Yeah, that sounds like today. It's believed the rest of the common folk spared such physical punishment, instead engaged in prayer, promising they would repay their debts and otherwise conduct themselves in sterling fashion to please the gods. Because you've just seen your leader stripped down and slapped across the face, you didn't want that to happen to you. It says, while the Babylonians may have been the first to introduce these promises to a celebration marking the start of the year, the Romans were the first to deliver theirs in January. For that, we can thank the wide-reaching Roman calendar, which moved the first month of the year from March to January, named for the two-faced god Janus, who both look back at the past and face the unknown future. The first month became a time for officials to pledge their vows of loyalty to Rome, a custom that continues in a less urgent but no less earnest tradition of the countless people who pledge to get off the couch and get to the gym each new year. Yes, there you go. Percentage of Americans who make New Year's resolutions for 2024. Do you count yourself? Do you have New Year's resolutions? Well, if you do, there are 30% of you out there, which I think it used to be a lot higher. That would be an interesting fact to see. That is this reducing? Is this reducing? So percentage of Americans, 30%. So Dick Clark's hosting New Year's Rocking Eve began in 1974. You know, for a lot of us, do you even remember anything before that? Glasses of sparkling wine downed in the U.S. each New Year's Eve. Around 360 million glasses of champagne. So that's just a little bit about, but don't you find it interesting that traditions and what we do? You know, it seems to me, when I look at social media, I think that a lot of people don't even celebrate at all. I see so many comments like, I won't be going out, I'll be staying at home, I'll be already in bed, watching the ball drop. They won't even be watching all this. So I find that interesting when it wasn't 25 years ago having a big New Year's Eve bash was the thing. Whereas now, so many people have a little celebration at home, but nothing like what you can remember with the big celebrations. Are there still big celebrations out there? Absolutely. But not the same. Actually, if you just think of the difference in the attitude towards drinking, I grew up in an era in the 70s and the 80s there where drinking and driving was not that big a deal. Today, designated drivers not being on the road, if you're drinking, all these type of things have certainly changed. And of course, then you also add in the advent of drugs, which has totally changed things too. I do want to remind you there is a Flow Fest is going on tonight. Tonight we'll talk a little bit about that. That is a non-alcoholic party that is going on right here in Greenwood. We'll talk a little bit more about this. And another thing I want to talk about was spending some time with young people last night. I found it very interesting, the use of ChatGPT and the opinions about using it. Okay? Why is that interesting, Anne? Well, I think in the media we're kind of led to believe that using ChatGPT and some of these other AI programs are the way to go, right? Well, I talked to a young lady last night. Now, she is a research person. She does love to write. She's like, I was talking about how I'd use ChatGPT for something. She's like, it just makes your mind lazy. It just does all these things. I don't like it. It's be the end of our country, end of human society, becoming totally dependent. I was like, wow, I'm impressed by this. But then I started saying, but if you temper it and use it for certain things and not depend on it for every answer, well, ChatGPT is wrong. I said, that's why you have to be smart enough to tell it you're wrong. But it was the most interesting conversation. It's the first time I've actually sat down with a person in their 20s who was, as I don't get to talk to that many anyways, maybe I should, but the use of ChatGPT and how she felt about it. When I read a lot about how young people are using it to write term papers and all this kind of stuff, I just was very surprised to see that. So that is one aspect of it. I also talked to a young person who is in the military and happens to be in Hawaii. And some of the things that happen to our military with the bent that Hawaii doesn't really like having our military there. And I was shocked to hear that, because I would think having a military base in Hawaii would be appreciated for their economy and yada yada. But we found out last night through conversations that no, it is not. So I wonder why we're in Hawaii. Should we go somewhere else? If they're not appreciated, should we send them somewhere else? Anyways, those were a couple of interesting nuggets that I got from my conversation with some of these young people last night. It was very interesting, very interesting. But I don't want to talk about anything heavy today. I'm just burnt out with all the heaviness of everything. So I thought we might just talk about some of the things that happened back in the 70s, back in the day. And this is from History Facts. And I like this one. They have some great quotes, but they also talk about things that I can relate to. And it's hard to believe that it's considered history, right? Yes, it is considered history. So this is an article that says the 70s were a time of contradictions in the United States. The fallout from the ongoing Vietnam War and Richard Nixon's Watergate scandal led to widespread cynicism, but that tension was cloaked in polyester and mirror balls. Sandwiched between the 60s idealism and the 80s excess, the 70s were a time when serious concerns about the economy, environment, politics, and shifting social values coexisted with an unabashed pursuit of fun and self-expression. That mix is what makes the era so endlessly fascinating and at times uniquely amusing. Here, there are 7 things. I don't know whether we'll talk about all 7 of them, but streaking. Streaking actually started in the 70s. For a few surreal years in the 70s, America was in the throes of what Time magazine called the epidermis epidemic. That's right, we were showing off our skin. Though public nudity wasn't new, the ancient Greeks famously competed nude in the Olympics. Streaking or running naked through a public place became a bona fide trend early in the decade. And remember that song, The Streak? Don't look, Ethel! That's right. The streaking mania started in American college campuses in the late 1960s. By 1973, the phenomenon was sweeping the nation. It also is believed the fad got its name that same year when a TV reporter covering a nude run at the University of Maryland said, "They're streaking past me right now. It's an incredible sight." So streaking hit a peak in 1974. I don't remember this. Universities competed for world records. Professional sporting events became irresistible targets. And singer Ray Stevens immortalized it all in The Streak. Remember that one. It says the fad's most infamous incident took place on April 2nd, 1974 during the 46 Academy Awards. LGBTQ plus activist and art gallery owner Robert Opel bolted across the stage in his birthday suit, flashing a peace sign to the audience and leaving the host, actor David Niven, surprisingly unfazed. But thanks to a largely to crack down on public nudity laws, the streaking craze faded by the end of the year almost as suddenly as it arrived. And that was back in 1974. Another thing that I remember some of it, but not really that much. We've been obsessed lately with when Biden was falling all the time, it became quite something to have discussions about this. But did you realize that Gerald Ford was a person who fell down? President Gerald Ford. It says it's not uncommon for politicians, including and maybe especially presidents, to be the subject of endless jokes. That certainly proved true for Gerald Ford, who became president of the United States in 1974, following Richard Nixon's resignation. And he was a former football star. He was quite athletic, but he had a series of stumbles during his presidency that led to lasting clumsy image. Most famously, in June of 1975, cameras caught him tripping down the rain-slicked steel stairs of Air Force One on a trip to Austria. A few months later, he got tangled in his dog's leashes, and around that time, he tumbled on the ski slopes in Colorado. News of him bumping his head on a helicopter and a train also made the rounds. So they said that those missteps back then, before we had the internet and all this, probably would have faded into obscurity if it wasn't for Saturday Night Live. And remember when, I don't remember this, but in the fall of 1975, comedian Chevy Chase debuted a slapstick impression of the president that turned Ford's every stumble into a running joke. See, these are things I don't remember. That's why I find them kind of interesting. However, this one, because I used to travel a lot and everything with friends and whatnot when I was in college, this was a thing. Trucker talking back and forth on their CB radios, Citizens Band radios. They'd been around since the 1940s, were used by niche hobbyists throughout the 60s, but during the 70s they became full-blown cultural phenomena, in part due to the 1973 oil crisis. So there you go. Truck drivers formed CB communities, sharing gas station prices and availability. And, of course, then there was that song, Convoy. We've got a convoy. Yes, there you go. 10-4, Breaker, and all this kind of stuff. By 1978, though, the trend had largely faded. I don't remember this either. I actually was there for some of this, for the 70s. I don't remember this one. Does anybody remember Elvis going to see President Nixon? Does anybody remember that? It was one of the most unexpected meetings the White House had seen. On December 21st, 1970, Elvis Presley walked into the Oval Office to meet with President Richard Nixon. The king of rock and roll had arrived at the White House unannounced earlier that morning to deliver a handwritten 6-page letter. In it, he outlined his concern about the country's drug culture and offered to be of any service that I can to help the country out. By midday, Presley, in a purple velvet suit, an oversized collared shirt, and a massive embellished belt buckle, was sitting across from the president. Together they chatted about America's drug problem, communism, and the Beatles. Before leaving, Presley, a police badge collector, requested a badge from the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs, and Nixon granted it to him. The pair also posed for photographs, with both decided the meeting would be kept a secret. The meeting was revealed in the press the following year, but didn't make a splash until the 1980s. How about that? While the hype was dissipated, a photo of the meeting remains one of the most requested items from the U.S. National Archives. I don't remember that at all. I mean, I'm not sure that I was a big Elvis fan, but I don't remember that at all. Another big item, the Farrah Fawcett haircut, that feathered cut that was. So that was a big. Farrah Fawcett, of course, was part of the Charlie's Angels. And, you know, today people paint little rocks and they leave them around, and it's a big deal. It's a lot of fun. Actually, last year the museum had a display of all these rocks and everything with words of encouragement. People would find them, they would take them, they would replace them different places. That still goes on in our community today. But the pet rock became a phenomena back in the 1970s. Did you realize that? I did not realize that. But the pet rock, dreamed up by a California advertising operator, Gary Dahl, the pet rock was exactly what it sounded like, a small, smooth stone nestled in a cardboard pet carrier box that came complete with breathing holes and an instruction manual with tongue-in-cheek rock training trips. But it turned into a bona fide phenomenon. Pet Rocks debuted at a San Francisco trade show in August of 1975. By Christmas that year, he was selling 100,000 rocks a day for $3.95 each. At a time when the U.S. was thick in the Watergate scandal and dealing with the 1973 oil crisis recession, this novelty toy rock took off, and the pet rock made you laugh. You could spend $5 for it and still laugh. We needed that. And this person that invented these became a millionaire practically overnight. But by the following year, the novelty had worn off and the pet rock was already a relic of its time. So I thought these were some of the interesting facts. You know, I think sometimes we're always concentrating on the big stories, and I like concentrating on the big stories. But I also think sometimes it's kind of neat just to look back and see some of the smaller things that influenced our lives and are ingrained in us, are part of our what we were when we were growing up. You know, by the late 1970s, disco had infiltrated American culture. What started as in underground clubs exploded in the mainstream in unexpected places. Saturday Night Fever, that was in 1977, brought platform shoes, bell-bottom pants, and polyester jumpsuits to the big screen. While fast food titan McDonald's ran a Big Mac ad set to disco sights and sounds. There you go. So, beloved Sesame Street characters grooved to disco tracks on not one but two albums, 1978 Sesame Street's Fever and 1979's Sesame Disco. Disco Frog, anyone? While the disco-fired version of John Williams' iconic Star Wars theme spent 2 weeks at the top of the Billboard's Hot 100 in 1977. Even Broadway legend Ethel Merman released an album of disco covers. The Ethel Merman Disco Album, now a camp cult favorite. So, you know, those were interesting times that we lived in. And those are just a few of the things that occupied our time. Very different from what we deal with today. What are the iconic things today? What do people want? Virtual reality. You know, they want all these games and things that they can play with their phones. We have an obsession with our phone. But if you really look at these things were all across the board in interest. From pet rocks to disco to kind of laughing at President Ford for not being able to walk down the Air Force One and some of the other things that happened. And what about the what about Farrah Fawcett, her haircut, the streaking was a big thing. But the one that really surprised me was Elvis Presley going to the White House to talk to Nixon about the drug problem. And here he was that, he got into them really, really big. But he wanted to help the country out with the drug problem. That was back in the 70s. So just some interesting facts about the past. Thought that we might just talk about something a little different here today. So, that was what I thought. Let's see. Yeah, it's now a federal offense to get a DUI in South Carolina. Okay, I'm not sure I knew that. It's now a federal offense to get a DUI in South Carolina. The first DUI results in a federal offense. That took place in November of 2025. I didn't know that had happened. Let's see, we got pet rocks. Somebody just said they got one in 1978. Yeah, they did not have a message on them. The rocks that they do today, they're painted. People really get into painting them and leaving the little messages and everything on them. The pet rocks actually looked like little pet animals, didn't they? They did. So that's a thing. Chris just said, remember you used to, Chris is asking me if I'm going to do a New Year's Eve show. I'm not sure. Jeff and I used to sit here, come on at the air around 11 o'clock on New Year's Eve, and we'd play some big band music and talk a little bit, but basically we just played some music. So I don't know whether I'll do it or not. You'll just have to tune in and see if I am going to play some of that big band music, an old-fashioned, yeah, there you go, Ann, an old-fashioned New Year's Eve, and then I do the ball drop. It's kind of fun. It is kind of fun. I might have to consider that, Chris. And then Chris just brought up Laverne and Shirley and Farrah were at Super Bowl in 1978. It's hard to believe. And when we look at the craziness, and you may say, how come you're not getting in on all this stuff going on? Because I just need a break from it. And I thought, these things really point out the difference in life, don't they? They really point out the difference in life. So, anyways, some fun stuff to talk about. And remember, and the very fact that we're able to remember it is pretty interesting unto itself. All right, well, what else do I have to talk about here today? I'm going to talk about this story that I've been promising you that I would talk about for days here. I've had it since Monday. Today is Wednesday. I just find this so, we talk about all the time side effects of medication. And I don't know about you, but if you're like me and you watch any TV, you see any of these commercials, whether they're on the internet or whether they're on TV, and they're always telling you all the side effects that could happen, right? Well, I'm going to give you this medicine, but you need to be aware, yada, yada. Or in my case, what I feel, a lot of doctors don't even tell you what the side effects are. You find out them yourselves and you go, oh my God, I'm not taking that medication. That's kind of where I am. And of course, they speak these side effects so fast, you're like, what'd they say? And of course, you have to see it again. I also think it's very, very, very different and this points to having to be aware of our own health care and taking care of self-care is the new health care. We've got to be aware of that. But don't you love these commercials? Ask your doctor. Excuse me. Ask your doctor if Repatha, if this one, if that one could help you. Well, yes, and you go in and see the doctor and he's going, no, I don't think you want to take that. Well, the TV says I do. Yeah. All right, anyways. This is a story from the New York Post. It was on Men's Health. 76-year-old man grows breasts after taking common medication used to treat high blood pressure. That kind of stopped me because I was like, why? Well, I had two thoughts on this. Why would a man take a drug that could potentially grow man boobs? And then again, does it have an effect on women? If women take this drug, and they want bigger boobs, is this a better way to, instead of having to have plastic surgery, implants, etc., etc.? This is from, as I said, the New York Post. Some medication can cause surprising side effects. One man learned this firsthand after taking a medication for heart failure. He developed a new physical feature, enlarged breasts. The condition known as gliomastia occurs when there's a hormone imbalance due to certain medications or puberty. After experiencing tender swelling breast tissue for the past 8 months, the cause of the 76-year-old's diagnosis was from a medication he'd been taking for several years. And what is it? Spironolactone? Spironolactone. The drug is one of the most commonly prescribed medications in the U.S., with more than 12 million prescriptions overall. While FDA approved to treat cardiovascular issues like high blood pressure, as well as hormone-related conditions in men, the drug does come with risks. Which leads me to the fact, does the doctor actually sit there and say, I'm going to give you this drug, but you may develop man boobs? I doubt it. Maybe so. I've not been involved in that part of anybody's life. Many of these side effects are common, including dehydration, dizziness, headache, or fatigue. Others, like, breast tenderness or increased growth of breast tissue may not be what men expect when taking this drug. But these more rare effects are not entirely unusual, with a reported 10% of men seeing breast growth. I find this phenomenal that it would be a drug and that there wouldn't be something else that one could take. This is because the medication decreases male sex hormone production, like testosterone, which can promote hair growth in women, but also lead to larger breasts in men. Has anybody experienced this? 864-332-9395, 864-332-9355. There we go, 9355, last 4 digits. So I guess it doesn't have the effect of creating larger breasts in women. At least half of all men will have enlarged breast tissue at some point in their lives. For some, the condition can resolve itself, but when it's caused by medication, the best course of action to reduce breast growth is by changing the drug dose or stopping use and switching to a new medication. Let me ask you something. Why would somebody want to take a drug that's going to do that if they're I'll use air quotes, real man? Meanwhile, men who deal with gynecomastia, not for medication side effects, are increasingly turning to breast reduction surgery. Surgical intervention can involve liposuction for excess fat or an incision to remove excess glandular tissue. Many men have both, meaning both liposuction and excision are needed. But why would you give a medication to somebody that had the possibility, 10% now, affect people this way? It says that, however, this spironolactone continues to be a top treatment for men's blood pressure. Other side effects that affect men more include decreased libido, nausea, and a few other issues too. I just wonder, why would you take it? Why would somebody prescribe that drug? Or why didn't they tell them, I've got this drug, and this drug. Which one would you like? I'm good with any or all of those drugs right there. But this drug is a top drug and has a tendency to create man boobs. This is where I think medication just gets to me. I think taking medication, while good that we have these medications, I think it's frightening the side effects that these things can affect. And I always worry about futuristically, if I take this drug, how is it going to affect me futuristically? So I'm very cautious when I'm taking drugs, but I know a lot of people just, if the doctor says take it, they take it. I would highly recommend asking what some of the side effects are. I know I was taking a drug, and it advertised it on TV. It was an inhaler, and it says, "This is not for asthma." And my pulmonarist or whatever told me I had asthma. So then I asked him, "Why am I taking this drug? It says it's not for asthma." He goes, "Oh, don't pay any attention to that." And yet that's what's being said on TV. So I think sometimes things are just, I think, number one, our doctors cannot know all the things that they are out there prescribing, and things are constantly changing. It must be very hard for doctors to keep up with all the latest. I tell you this story just to tell you that ask the questions when you're talking to your doctor, what some of the side effects could be to your health. I think it is so important that you be engaged in your health and not just let health be, well, the doctor said take it. The doctor said this, that, and the other. I think the other thing you need to be aware of is the drug interaction between when you're taking drugs from one doctor, another doctor, and another doctor. If you go to 3 different specialists, who is actually looking out for how all these drugs are interacting with each other? So, lots of issues with drugs, although I am glad to see that a lot of prices on drugs are coming down. And of course, this is the 31st, so it looks like, since Congress did nothing about the subsidies that they had been paying with Obamacare, looks like those subsidies are going up. It'll be real interesting to see what happens. So at this point, I'd like to say, Happy New Year, everybody. Let's hope that this year is a little bit, I could use a little bit slower pace. I don't know about you. I could use a little bit less news out there, a little more substance instead of all these stories into the frying pan just to find out how many or not. And we've got to become more tolerant of other people's views and let them have their views. After all, we're supposed to have freedom of speech, but not freedom of speech that hurts people, etc., etc. But we should become a little more tolerant, and maybe we should start working together for the common good of our country. And if we could do that on a local level, maybe we can do it on a state level, and maybe we can do it on a national level. And who knows, maybe the world. I don't hold out much hope for that. But anyways, I am Ann Eller. This is WCRS Radio. Did have a couple of things I wanted to tell you about before I hang it up. Penny's going, just hang it up. I would like my food. So, but I did have a few things I did want to tell you about. So let's flip through here real quick. Tomorrow, January 1st, Lake Greenwood State Park. They're having these first day hikes all across the state. I don't know, maybe across the nation, but I know it's across the state. To get out and be outside and be away from screens. Happy New Year to you on the right off by hitting the trails. Join us for a scenic walk along the East Shoreline Loop out there at Lake Greenwood, a 1.5 mile trail that showcases the park's natural beauty. Along the way, they'll make stops to explore the park's fascinating nature and history, giving you a chance to stretch your legs while stimulating your mind. That is January 1st at 2 p.m. at the Recreation Building in the campground. So that is the Lake Greenwood State Park. If you want to venture out, though, there are parks all across the state that are having these type of walks, and I think you can go to first day hikes. I'm pretty sure that that's where I got this from to see. I did this one on for Lake Greenwood for our state park here. Also, kind of exciting over there, the Modoc Speedway is set to roar back into life in 2026. Looking forward to checking that out. The Greenwood County Community Foundation, $1.5 million in grants. That is the community foundation right here in Greenwood, doing good for our community. This, of course, is they gave out $1.5 million charitable causes through our grant cycles and donor-advised funds. To see where our donors and staff have made a difference, visit their website and look under Granting History for 2025. That is on their website, greenwoodcfcommunityfoundation.org. So check that out if you're interested. But $1.5 million, I thought that's a pretty big dollars being reinvested back into our community. They are looking for volunteers in 2026 to keep Greenwood County beautiful. They're looking for volunteers for all kinds of help to keep Greenwood clean, proud, and thriving through community trash pickups and beautification. We're welcoming schools and classrooms, college and student organizations, businesses and employee volunteer teams, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, churches, all types of group. Volunteering is a great way to earn service hours, build teamwork, and make a visible difference right here at home. What you'll be doing with community trash pickups, cleanup projects throughout Greenwood, they are looking for people to volunteer with that. So that's another one. Also, did want to remind you, if you've taken down your Christmas tree, how do you dispose of your live Christmas tree? You can do that at any Greenwood County Convenience Center or the Recycling Center in the leaf and limb bin. Remove all lights, ornaments, tinsel, and strands. Well, that's going to be pretty hard to remove every piece of tinsel, but anyways, artificial trees should be placed in the furniture bin at convenience centers. So if you're throwing away an artificial tree, put it in the furniture bin at the convenience center. If you're throwing away a live Christmas tree, make sure you put it in the leaf and limb bin. It says SCDES regulations prohibit any waste, including leaf and limb debris, from being placed on the ground. Christmas trees must be placed in a bin. So there you go. That's something that you may need some help on. I also think it's pretty cool that the Greenwood Premier Cinema is going to be doing flashback cinema at Premier. Every Sunday and Wednesday this spring, Premier audiences will have the chance to watch a classic film on the big screen. This new series kicks off next weekend. That's not this weekend. Next weekend, I guess, with Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And they have a whole lineup. And that's, well, it starts this Sunday, January 3rd. So classic films on the big screen. You'll be able to watch them every Sunday and Wednesday through February 11th. And maybe if it really kicks off, maybe they'll carry it on beyond that. But that's what they've made a commitment to. I think that's pretty cool. And Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, that'll take you back now. So good idea. That's a great idea, actually, I think. New Year's Eve and day hours out there at the Par 3 course. I've been talking a little bit about that. I think it's really cool. They're open from 10 to 5 p.m. They have their simulators out there from 10 to 8 p.m. and you can book it at par3west.com. That's par3west.com. That was just one that I found interesting. Also, they're having a community yard sale this Saturday from 8 a.m. to 1 at the Brewer Center at the Boys and Girls Club. That's at 125 North University Street. It is an indoor yard sale. Rain or shine, it's a perfect place to sell what you no longer need or browse for bargains you'll love. That is $20 per table. Indoor space vendor setup begins at 7. They open the doors from 8 to 1. So if you're trying to get rid of some stuff, declutter or whatever, you might want to check that out. So we got one more thing I want to, as I said, I think I brought this up yesterday. If you're interested in becoming an engaged resident to serve our community boards, they need help on the Planning Commission, the Board of Architectural Review, Zoning Board of Appeals, and Building Inspection Appeals Board. Contact the city of Greenwood, and they would love to hear from you and put you on the list and see if you meet what they are looking for to be engaged in our community. So that is another one. Also, this is the one event I wanted to make sure I told you about. Flow Fest is coming up this evening. It is a New Year's Eve party of a different type. That's right. It is at Real Life Church, which is at 2352 Highway 72, 221 East, right here in Greenwood. It is from 5 to 10 p.m. So it's a Christian music festival, and people are traveling from all over to be part of this powerful night filled with faith, worship, fellowship, food, and fun. Incredible artists from across the country bringing hip-hop, country, rock, and contemporary worship all on one stage. Featuring Christian artists and vendors from Atlanta, Greenville, Columbia, Orlando, Knoxville, Missouri, Indiana, Mississippi, North Carolina, Nashville, and amazing local talent too. So they'll have food trucks, community connection, and powerful testimonies. A Christian comedian is the co-host. So that is Flow Fest. It is tonight from 5 to 10. And if you're interested in something a little different, something that's also family friendly, you might consider checking out this event. Again, if you want to be out this evening, it is at where is it at? Real Life Church, 2352 Highway 72, 221 East, right here in Greenwood from 5 to 10. So thought I would just point that out to you as an alternative to do something different. So, Humane Society can always use our help. What would be really a help, though, is if people would get their pets spayed and or neutered so that we could break the cycle in this continuation of puppies, and more puppies. Anyways, I want to tell you from my heart to you, Happy New Year. May this new year bring you peace, bring you some connection to people, and you keep listening to WCRS Radio. We are getting ready to roll out a new schedule and get people on the air. We'll be back doing the afternoon show, which I miss, but I've also enjoyed this little bit of time to kind of spend a little bit of time thinking about what I want out of the future. And Penny certainly has enjoyed the extra time that she has done. In fact, she's giving me side eye right now, and I need my breakfast. Get me my breakfast now. So I'm going to close it out and say Happy New Year, everybody. If you want to check the radio around 11 o'clock, I may come in. I'm not really sure. I haven't made that decision, but I might come in. But dropping the curtain, saying Happy New Year. Thanks for being right here with us on WCRS, and to all our amazing sponsors who advertise with us on WCRS and make sure that you know about them. Thank you very much. I couldn't do it without all the support that I get in this community. So from the voice of Greenwood to directly to you, thank you. This is WCRS right here in Greenwood. Be back tomorrow morning, though. Going to share more stories. Have a good one, everybody. Bye-bye.